Good afternoon. Welcome to the JC Raulston Arboretum. We're standing here on the edge of the annual color trials. If you are a person who participates in our many midweek programs, you might have seen our visit to the color trials back in June. I always feel that a really good time to evaluate the color trials is the end of summer. See what's still looking good after a long, hot, humid summer. So that's what we're going to do today. We're actually standing next to this add-on bed, a bed of tropicals and subtropicals, because there's a couple plants I'd like to point out. This being one of them. This is actually the same genus as corn, as in corn on the cob or cornbread. It's the same genus, Zea, Z-E-A. And many of you have probably grown the variegated corn, which looks very much like this, but if you've grown corn, you know it has a lifespan of about 3 months tops maybe. So you can grow the variegated ones and have this kind of foliage that looks good for a month or two. But this is a tropical perennial corn, and the whole scientific name is Zea perennis, perennis meaning perennial, and this cultivar is called Winning Streak. As I said, it's a tropical perennial, so you can treat it as an annual. A week from now, our co-worker Tim Alderton will lead a class here on propagating these tender perennials, so you can overwinter starts of them for planting next spring. I've now grown this probably about 6 years or more. It looks good every minute of summer. It's something I've never seen for sale. I acquired it in a roundabout way, but it's something I wish some wholesale grower would pick up, so it would be something that would show up in garden centers, so more people could enjoy it in their garden. This beautiful foliage would also be good cut for flower arrangement.
Doug, do you ever have the corn on the plant buggy?
Do we ever have this plant on the plant buggy?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever have. It's easy enough to root, but this plant, it's a plant of not many stems, so we never have a whole lot of plants to spare. It's blooming. The inflorescence doesn't look much at all like corn. Of course, corn is so removed from a wild plant that it's not surprising that this looks different. There's a wild grass that I've always known as shattercane, and the fruit looks very much like that. It's a disc-shaped seed that is stacked one on top of another, and shattercane because they're shed individually. But I don't know where I came up with that name, because I've not ever been able to find it again. And I just get blank stares when I ask other people if they've ever heard of shattercane. I'll point out one other grass, the corn being one grass. This great big pennisetum. There's a dozen or so cultivars of hybrid pennisetums with dark foliage. This is one that we think is exceptionally well colored. It's one called Black Stockings, and it's half hardy here. Often little bits of it come back, but once the summer turns hot and humid, it grows really quickly. These were little scraps planted probably about May. We're going to go on the color trials proper. Did you want to point out anything?
Well, there are just a couple things I wanted to mention. One is I wanted people to know that this is a fairly challenging program to do, because I'm beside Doug, who is such the dapper dresser. He's got the lovely hat, the coordinated shirt. So I'm hoping that my pink plays off of yours nicely. But anyway, no, I just want to thank everybody for returning to check in with us about what's looking nice in the gardens here later in the season. As Doug said, we did this walkthrough in June. The plants were installed the beginning of May, so this is about 4 months in. So when, Alexander, if you can do like a panning shot, you'll see that there is color out here. We're going to walk through and point out some of the things that are still looking really nice. Most of those are going to be the ones that we know that love the heat and humidity that we're known for here in North Carolina. Directly in front of us are some begonias, and these begonias are part of the All-America Selection Trial. And if you're joining us for the first time, I'll tell you that the All-America Selection Trial is held at maybe about 40 different sites across the U.S., and we all receive the same plant material. We grow it out for the season and then turn in all of our data so that we can have a collective database of solid data for a year's time that the breeders then can see what does well, what doesn't do well in various parts of the country. And what they do is they give you a numbered variety, which is the very first one of the begonias, and then we have comparisons. You can have anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 comparisons, and in this case we only have the 2. When we go through the field here, we'll see that some of the numbered varieties don't look very good. Well, that's all right, because this is a trial. So we will have successes and we'll have things that failed, but all of that is information that's collected and then shared. Another real quick thing I'd like to point out before we move is down here with the Calibrachoas. Calibrachoas tend to like it a little bit on the drier side, so usually a container is a good spot to put them in. We also have this variety, which is called Mini Famous Neo Pink Hawaii. It's actually outperforming any of the other entries of Calibrachoas that we received this year. Look at the beautiful perky pink flowers that just cover the plants here, whether it's, as I said, here in the container or in the hanging baskets. You'll see that they are covered and they've outperformed flower-wise any of the other entries. I was asked if the Calibrachoas were deadheaded, and not at all. We don't deadhead them. There are a few other things that sporadically we will remove the odd flower, but for the most part, there's no or minimal deadheading done, but none with these Calibrachoas.
Yeah, and I know when we've led tours of the color trials other times, people often wonder if we're spraying them with insecticides and fungicides and stuff. No, the trial is to see how they perform under the current growing conditions without that kind of interference of pesticides. So sort of sink or swim in the color trials. It's to see if they do well in this area.
And that also brings something we'll talk about as we move. As I said, this is the first time seeing the trials, just know that we do publish all of our data at the end of the season, and this data is available on the JC Raulston Arboretum's website. You can go there and check this year, as well as, well, not right now, but you will be able to check this year's and past years on the website. But oh shoot, there was something I was going to tell y'all about. With the data, what's really another very important piece to the trial report is the weather data, because each year we have new and different challenges, and sometimes the weather is what presents the challenge, sometimes it's something else. But just know that you always need to look and see what's consistently towards the top performers for us if you want to get a true understanding of what to be looking at, because we may have had a mild winter or summer rather, and that will impact the data as well.
This is a new series of small-flowered annual Vinca. Annual Vinca is Catharanthus, and I always think that come late summer, when it's been hot and dry, is when the annual Vinca really starts to shine. I think when it's hot and dry in August, it's finally feeling like the weather is good enough for them.
I like the tightness of them. I like, generally I don't like a lot of the really compact growers, how things have been being bred, but I like these, and I like the smaller, daintier flower. You can see this second color in. This is Soiree Kawaii Coral Reef, and Coral Reef has, within the last, I'd say, week, has finally started to go down, but the other colors in this series are doing very well. And it's one that I think we had last year and was outstanding last year as well. They just keep adding to the color line, so I think you could probably find whatever color you needed for your own situation.
I'm standing here next to a sunflower. This is one plant in a 3-gallon pot. This is the plant here. You can see it was an absolute showstopper when it was in bloom. But I'm standing here to point out the difference between two types of quote-unquote annuals that are on trial here. One are the true annuals. A true annual grows from seed, flowers, and set seeds and dies within 1 year's time. The sunflower is an example of that. It flowered 2 months ago, maybe, Bernadette, and it's full of seed. I suspect if we stood here long enough, well, not right here, but a few feet away, there would be finches on here feeding on the seeds. But the other group of plants in the that we treat as annuals are actually tropical plants, which are actually perennial, but they're tender perennials or frost tender perennials that don't survive our winter. So we treat them as annuals because we only grow them for that one growing season. And at this time of the year, many of the plants that still look good are the tender perennials that we treat as annuals. The begonias certainly are perennials. They will live for, endless number of years. I don't know how long individual Vincas will grow because I've never grown them over the winter, but they're from a tropical climate, and tropical just means frost-free. So they would continue going until frost stops them. And then, things like Lantana, some Lantanas are winter hardy, but most aren't. So they usually keep on blooming up until a hard frost. What's that?
When I was going to say about the Lantana, when you and I were talking the other day, we noticed there were a couple in the Sundance series that both of us had enjoyed. That's a new series to us, so we'll leave them hopefully and see how late into the winter they'll go, or if they will survive the winter at all. That's a series we're not familiar with, whereas the Luscious one, we know as long as we don't have a real severe winter, that it'll overwinter for us here. Edibles, real big, trending strongly, and we have had some interesting peppers that we're moving on. I don't know for y'all if you can still get them, but anyway, most of these peppers were very, very hot. One is part of the All-America Selection edible trial, and it is very small, has that cayenne shape to it, but the peppers in here supposedly, as you know, peppers are rated on a Scoville rating, and that just tells you the measure of hot. This numbered variety of the edibles has a Scoville reading of about 40,000, and most of our other peppers are around 8,000. So it is significantly hotter. My daughter has used these many times over this summer. She can survive the heat of the pepper. She loves them, and she can't get enough of them. For me, it's enough for me just to eat the tip, and then that's enough because it's pretty warm. It was compared to this other pepper here called a hot burrito. The hot burrito has a bigger, to me, it's a bigger, like as a jalapeno type size. And this one was another one that my daughter liked. She said that was nice and had a lot of heat to it as well. But anyway, so I guess the upshot is that edibles are still really popular. Their companies are breeding towards all these containers, so you can put them on your patio or put them, a small area by your back porch or whatever to grow them. You were getting ready, I think, to say something about the candy cane.
Well, I can. And the hot peppers are more likely to still be going strong this time of year, usually up until a hard frost, than tomatoes are. A lot of tomatoes sort of peter out by this time of year. But this is a culinary pepper that you could also grow as an ornamental with its variegated foliage. The peppers are striped as well. You see that lovely one? I think there might be a ripe one.
Here, I'll look.
That's
right
okay.
Here. This one right here.
Yeah.
Or here. How about this one? Because that one is rotten on the back.
They do turn sort of orangish as they ripen, but still striped with color. And I guess this is a hot one. Have you tried this?
It's fairly mellow. Matter of fact, when I got them when they were green, they were real watery. It's had a lot of crunch, but not a lot of flavor. I haven't tried this one. I expect it to be a little on the mellow side. Please don't tell me you got to run. It's not too hot?
Oh, Bernadette, you're going to have to do the rest of the program.
Oh,
no,
thanks.
There's no heat to this one at all.
Okay.
This tastes like that variety we had last year.
Okay.
So it's sweet pepper.
Right. The jalapeno beside it. This one here, this is a jalapeno. As you can see, the fruit underneath. Well, let me take this off, sorry. You can see the fruit underneath here. The jalapeno last year was just a number, but did so well in the All-America selection trials that the company went ahead and marketed it for this year. And it was given, I believe, a gold medal award in the edibles, which is something that is only given every few decades. So this has been a fabulous performer for us, very prolific. Also had it in hanging baskets. They're blooming their hearts out, and tons of fruit. The fruit, of course, is starting to slow down now, the number, but we have still have lots of fruit on here, and I think it has a lot of flavor. I put it into some chili this summer, and you have to be careful because there again, if you get one that happens to be really warm, it can be too warm. But it was nice. It gave a good kick to the chili. Sure. Tomatoes were another thing that people are always. I think there are 15 million tomatoes, so you just sort of have to pick your favorite. Unfortunately, I didn't stake any of these, so we're now getting like a second flush, as you can see here, of the Bellatrix. Bellatrix was a nice plum Roma type that I enjoyed early in the season. There were a couple others that were probably, they're bred with the heritage ones, like that Dark Star one.
Oh, yeah, that Dark Star was really tasty.
It was, yeah, very tasty, but because of the look and so forth of it, it looked like it was bred with the heritage ones. Yeah. But anyway, so like I said, the very, very popular. We got basil out here that as the summer progressed, they continued to do well, but then with all the winds and the heavy rains that we've had in the last few weeks, you can see the basil over here, the Thai tower, which I thought it was fabulous structure early on in the summer, has just been blown to pieces with the winds and stuff. But if you had it in a more protected area, I think it would be a good one for the yard.
It's doing a Bradford pear imitation.
Hey, that's not fair. That's really a slap to that, and I think it was nicer than the Bradford pear.
Smells better. Shall we just, what's
no, that's
Shall we jump ahead and right here?
Okay, I was asked about the Calibrachoa, the name of it, and I have to walk back. It was Neo Pink Hawaii or something along those lines. The name of the Calibrachoa that I was talking about that was pink and just going strong is called Mini Famous Neo, N-E-O, Pink Hawaii.
I'm sure you all are familiar with Coleus. Oh, maybe 20 years ago, people introduced so-called sun Coleus. I could be wrong, but I tend to think it's just that we discovered that Coleus are more tolerant of sun than we originally thought. We had always grown them in shade, just like people tend to grow caladiums in shade, but caladiums are perfectly happy out in full sun, especially if they have plenty of water. So Coleus are another plant that often looks good all the way up until frost. Sometimes if we have a long, cool fall, they'll start to grumble a little bit and you know, lose a little bit of their brilliance, but they generally go all the way up until frost. And they're about the easiest thing to root. Now, there was a question earlier about deadheading. In the home garden, you might want to deadhead these. Well, they're not even deadheads, but just cut the flower stalks off so you just have the beautiful foliage. But you might notice that there's quite a few bumblebees and other bees visiting the flowers. So, you know, you can go either way. Have just beautiful Coleus foliage or beautiful Coleus foliage supporting pollinators. There's that word again. And we're standing right next to a bunch of different selections of zinnias, and I see nearest to me a marigold, both of which are true annuals, started from seed each year, and then they produce seed, and then the plants die. I do not want people to go away with the impression that I'm saying these aren't worth growing. For one thing, the true annuals that come on real quickly from seed, you can sow a second crop about July or late August, and those late sown ones will be glorious all the way up until frost. So just as you plant several crops of squash or green beans or something, you can plant several crops of zinnias and marigolds. You know.
And anybody that's grown zinnias, the old-timey varieties, know that here in North Carolina, we always fought powdery mildew. And powdery mildew, apparently they've been breeding resistance into the lines, and also some of the lines have been crossed with the other more tolerant types of zinnias. But that is not the problem that we used to have 30 years ago. And as you're looking at them there, you'll see the various little skippers and butterflies and bees that come to land on the zinnias. So they're another nice pollinator, as Doug says.
Yeah, zinnias are superb flowers for pollinators. Those big, broad, petal-like ray flowers are landing pads for the larger butterflies, and then they nectar on the smaller disc flowers in the center of the flowers, the inflorescences. Okay, you want to jump 2 beds from here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And may I talk just as we go? Or is it not recorded in between? Oh, okay. Okay, they don't need to see the video. It's just that we were talking about the edibles. We also had some garlic chives that are going like gangbusters, but the broken up basil is covering it up. And I'm taking Doug over there just because he was wondering. Do you see them right here?
Yeah, I do see them.
They've been going like crazy.
Yeah.
But it's another one that's nice, tight, compact. It's good for the home garden. Doesn't it smell nice? That's because I just messed with the basil. But here,
it's this Thai basil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going out to dinner right now. Find a good Thai restaurant in this area. The allium,
right here.
So-called garlic chives are an interesting thing, and the reason I asked if they were blooming is because garlic chives, the true garlic chives, are blooming now. A very pretty flower and a good pollinator plant. But this allium, and the cultivar name is actually Allium, Y-U-M.
Little marketing there, I think.
But they're a hybrid between the two common chives, the garlic chives, and then the common, more oniony flavored common chives with the lavender flowers in the spring. So I'm real curious to see the color of the flower and when they bloom. I don't think there was any information on the floral display.
No, but you know what?
Both of the chives are, you know, good multi-purpose plants because they're good in the kitchen, but they're also showy in the garden.
And it's flavorful. It's the first time I've actually tried it. It's very nice and tasty.
And it's sort of, I don't know, do you find that sort of halfway between onions and garlic?
I cannot have enough onion or garlic in anything I cook, so I'm not the right person to ask.
Well,
you know, so.
I feel that the first thing you do when you go in the kitchen is start sauteing some onions and garlic.
And they'll come.
And then you decide what you're going to fix for dinner.
Yeah,
or breakfast.
Anything that's put in there. Yeah.
Salvia is a huge genus. It's one of, I think, about 700 genera in the mint family. And my goodness, you can just see all the big, I don't know our native pollinators too well by name. I think, you know, I've always tended to call these big eyes bumblebees too, but I think those are carpenter bees. The true bumblebees are these smaller, similar looking bees. But they're visiting the flowers, and the ones with tubular flowers tend to be favored by hummingbirds as well. This one is a selection of Salvia Farinacia, the mealy cup sage, which is generally a reliably winter hardy here, and it'll bloom from May till frost. If you're a real tidy-minded, you could go in and, you know, snap off these spent flowers, but any one of these inflorescences blooms for probably many months.
And in this case, I think it's a nice contrast against the bluish purple there, to leave the white ones in there. I don't think it detracts from it.
Well, you know, you're right. It looks like it has some white flowers amongst the blue.
Mm-hmm. And behind the scenes, we have Carol, and Carol and I were talking about this salvia yesterday, and I mentioned the fact that one of the reasons I like it is the presentation of the nice, strong, sturdy stems, and would make it, I would think, a nice one for cut flowers, except I believe Kathleen told us that they shatter, so they don't last very well. But it does have a nice, I believe, wasn't that something she talked about? I think, yeah. Anyway, so also over here, I was going to point out this series here. It's part of the or from the All America Selection Trials years ago. It's called Summer Jewel. That's the series name. This color in particular is called Lavender. I don't particularly like it. It sort of fades away, looks like it's a spent white, but others in the Summer Jewel series are much more attractive. The white is a nice white, and they have a pink as well that's pretty. But this does absolutely nothing for me. That color is just not really attractive. We have that one salvia, the Lancelot. Why don't you talk about it?
Because you talk about it.
No, you talk about it. No. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say.
Well,
we were surprised.
This is a selection of Salvia canariensis. And canariensis, one of those words with that ensis ending, which means from. It's from the Canary Islands. And the foliage is a lot like the culinary sage, Salvia officinalis, the one you use in your turkey stuffing. You know, with these woolly, hairy leaves, not one that we'd expect to tolerate our heat and humidity. And it's interesting, last year we had the exact same selection, and they rotted out almost immediately. But last year we had, you know, long wet spells where it rained more days than not. This year it looks incredibly well. I guess it's been blooming for months.
It has.
Yeah.
It has.
And it survived last winter, not these plants, but last year, since it rotted in all the wet, we planted some extra plants up on the roof, which is extremely hot and dry, and they survived the winter. They're pretty small, but they have survived the winter.
Well, we also have the Vinca here, and just wanted to point out that, as we all know, the Vinca is one that loves our heat and humidity. We expect it to be doing well. The later in the season, they generally tend to still do well because they thrive with all the intense heat. And unfortunately, it looks like we're leading in with a early fall that's going to continue with the heat. So they should continue to thrive. And Doug, I think beside those, the comparison here of the sunflowers, which you were talking about before, is very evident, because you see the single stems have all petered out, and you have the multi-stem ones that are just, you can't say enough good things. They're just stellar.
Yeah, you know, again, a seed-grown sunflower that completed its life cycle, so it's done. It's checking out. You know, they're almost dead, but that's their normal life cycle.
Would that help?
But these are a hybrid, interspecific hybrid sunflower. And today is the middle of September, and they still look superb. And despite being a hybrid, the pollinators visit the flowers. I don't think it sets any seed. Were these started from seed, or are they vegetative?
Vegetative.
Yeah, so it's a sterile hybrid that started from stem cuttings, I guess, or maybe tissue culture. And this, I think we had this particular one, Sun Credible. I think this is the third year, so we've been impressed with it, equally impressed for 3 years now. But Bernadette will show you this introduction that is new to us today. I mean, this year. What is it?
Sun Credible Saturn.
Yeah. And
that's because of the rings around the flower. You can see them down. Oh, good. And
I don't want Bernadette to see me cutting a flower from her trials, but you can cut long enough stems that would even be a good cut flower for, you know, a mason jar on the picnic table or something like that. Yeah. But we've really been impressed by these modern hybrid annual sunflowers.
Yeah. Can't really say enough good things about them, because they just, once they kick in, and that's probably sometime in July, mid-July maybe, but earlier in July they start, but by mid-July they're in full flower, and they stay like that until the frost. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with those.
You want to jump over one bed? We have a couple good beds.
Sure.
These are two new selections of annual, I guess maybe even a tender perennial, commonly known as Blue Days. It's same family as Morning Glories. It's Evolvulus, and Evolvulus, this species has always been a good summer annual, but I really think these are improvements because there's a lot more flowers per plant than the older ones. I would say maybe like twice as many.
Easily.
And I also think that at least this variety are staying open longer during the day, but I might be wrong about that. But you can see they're only 2-3 inches tall. One plant is about 2 feet wide. It'd be a great annual to cascade out of the container, but really good plant in the ground in full sun.
I like Evolvulus. I've always liked them. I liked them back when they used to call the cultivar Blue Days. It was Blue Days Evolvulus. But anyway, but I like this shade of blue that it is, and other colors play nicely off of it. So I've probably always had it somewhere in my garden for 20 plus years. Just not, as Doug said, to the flower power that you get now. Years ago, you used to have the odd flower on there, but now much more floriferous.
And they're both, I guess the cultivar name is Blue My Mind, B-L-U-E. And this darker one on the left here is Blue My Mind XL. And the other one, I'm guessing, might be the original one, just Blue My Mind.
And that's correct.
Okay.
But, you know, we were talking about this too, you and I. The flower size and everything seems to be the same on those. And we think the XL seems to maybe have a few more flowers.
Yeah, well, looking at them today, it looks like that.
Usually when they say XL, they'll talk about it referring to the flower size or something, but in this case, I think it's the number of flowers.
And, you know, this isn't blowing my mind today, but I want to point this plant out. This is something I never even knew existed until this year. And the genus name, the generic name is James Britiana, so obviously named for somebody named James Britiana. Probably has no, very selfie-facing person with no ego at all, but you can see the name. So that, you know, they're completely new to us. Safari Sky and Safari Dawn reminds me sort of a Nemesia. What has your impression been of them?
Well,
it's interesting to try something brand new.
Exactly, and I was anticipating these to die out pretty early.
Yeah, me too.
So I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And this one, which is at the Safari Dawn,
yeah,
the Safari Dawn obviously outperforms the other and has more flowers, has a bigger plant size. But I like, there again, I like the color, and I think it exceeded my expectations, I guess, which were pretty low to begin with. I don't know if you want to talk about the Calibrachoas?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Did you want to?
No, go ahead. You're over by it.
Calibrachoas is, well, actually, Dennis could probably confirm, Calibrachoas is now an Enothera, like sundrops. Some of them are, but not this one, maybe. I don't know. It's a plant I've grown for, 20 years as a short-lived perennial. But here they were entered in as an annual, and they're not showing their very best today, but they've really been impressive all summer long. It's almost a little subshrub, and I think here they'd live for a number of years. I suspect, no, these are probably vegetatively propagated, probably stem cuttings.
They were. These came to us as vegetative cuttings.
And this typical color is Ladybird Sunglow. This other selection, Ladybird Lemonade, is this lovely pale yellow. It's being sort of smothered by its big neighbor here, but was really good earlier in the summer.
And I disagree with you. I think it looks good for this late in the season. I love the pure yellow color of the flower. We have so many other things that have already petered out. So I think to have that still going makes it a viable contender for somebody that's looking for stuff to the end of the season.
Well, in this climate, at least, I'd plant it in a perennial situation.
Yeah.
We always have, well, we often have extras of the plants that are planted in the color trials, and we've planted them in the Arboretum where they will be able to spend as many years as they care to live. So we'll see how they behave as a perennial.
Okay.
You want to talk about, what do you want to talk about?
Well, we can do the Gomphrena. I'm a sucker for a Gomphrena. I do like these. This is called Tufula, and it looks like like it should belong with Dr. Seuss, because of the upright, look like firecrackers that are exploding. But anyway, up until just recently, they were one big mound. As you can see, it's starting to split now, but good colors, good size plant. And one other thing, if anybody has lots of time, what you can do, this is what I used to do with Gompphrenas. These have multi-heads. But anyway, if you have a lay needle, you can pierce through here and make a nice flower lay. I used to do that years ago.
All right. And if you've grown what's that?
Oh, yes, I do have a sign. I'm sorry.
If you've grown an earlier introduction, Fireworks, this is essentially the same, but maybe about half the height. Fireworks gets, certainly 3 foot tall, maybe almost 4 foot tall. And this species of Gomphrena actually sometimes will overwinter, but it also will come back in a mild way from seed. The
Indian blanket? You
Sure.
want to talk about the Gaillardia?
Yeah.
It's another one that's looking very nice into the
Yeah.
into the fall. Has been flowering continuously.
This Gaillardia, named for somebody with the family name of Gaillard, Gaillard, is sort of like the sunflowers, the sunflowers that still look really good in that they're hybrids between several different species. So though they look very much like the common Gaillardia, the Indian blanket flower that I certainly grew up with, which is sold as a perennial but is a very short-lived perennial, and generally blooms for a few months and then peters out. These, you see, again, it's the middle of September and they still look great. So even though these are not reliably winter hardy, they are really worthwhile as an annual. And I suspect being a Gaillardia would take the hottest, driest spot.
Yep.
Are they both the same series? Yeah.
Yes.
Heated up scarlet and heated up yellow.
And another pollinator plant.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think any of these would come. They're probably sterile. They probably don't come.
I don't believe we've ever had any issue with them being a problem for weeds the next year. So I think you're right. I think they are sterile.
And now we're going to make our cameraman. What's that?
Before they go, actually, if Alexandra, if you'll pan over to the next two beds, you see all the empty space there? We were talking about how Calibrachoas don't like to get saturated feet. Neither do most of your petunias. Petunias were looking glorious up until about, maybe 4 weeks ago. And so what we're going to be doing is walking over, but we're going to talk briefly about the ones that are still there and looking nice, because those are the ones you need to be paying attention to, because they are tougher. They apparently can take our heat and the humidity and the rains that we've had.
Yeah. But Bernadette, before we take off, I want to talk about this plant.
Sure.
This was something new for us this year. It did not impress me when we had the open house, whenever that was, the color trial open house, or when we did it as a midweek program in June. Then it was almost flat on the ground and not all that impressive. It's a Heliotrope. It's a hybrid. I have not been able to find out who its parents are. And Heliotrope looks a lot like a verbena. And it's not related to verbena. It's in the same borage family. I'm sorry, did I hold this up long enough? Augusta Lavender. Let Vanna take that label.
Thank
and an
you.
interesting thing about the inflorescence on a heliotrope, it's what's known as a cyme. But if you see this end of the sort of the flower stalk, it's curled over itself. So it's referred to as a scarpoid cyme. Some of you in the audience are screaming. I've heard him say that 1,000 times already. But scarpoid cyme, because it resembles the way a scorpion holds its tail over its back.
I didn't know that.
It has a little bit of fragrance. So I wonder if one of its parents is the tender perennial heliotrope, which is one of the best fragrances in the universe, even compared to things on my home planet. But I'm wondering if maybe its other parent, or one of its parents, might afforded some winter hardiness. So we'll next year plant it in a location where we can leave it in the ground for the winter and see if it's winter hardy.
Smell it?
Heliotropium amplexicoli is another species that we grow that is a winter hardy perennial, and both it and this hybrid are really good pollinator plants. We see a number of butterflies and skippers on it, a bunch of different bees. So another one to watch or a test for winter hardiness. And we have Lantanas. We've seen a lot of them earlier in pots. You might wonder why we have some plants in pots and others in the ground. Well, that's not a decision Bernadette makes or anyone here at the Arboretum. The companies that supply, the seed or the plants for the color trials for testing determine whether things are grown in the ground or in a pot or in a hanging basket. And sometimes, the same plant will be both in the ground and in a pot, but that's a decision made by the grower of the plant.
They also tell us whether they put it in the sun or the shade. They have lots of latitude.
But these are Lantanas, again, ones that we don't know whether or not they're winter hardy, but Lantana is entirely worthwhile as an annual because it will bloom through the hottest, driest spell of summer and just go pretty much up to frost. And was Sundance the series that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, that's new for us anyway. Mm-hmm.
The Sundance series seems to have this more low spreading mounding habit, where some of the other series are more like tight little upright bushes. But you can choose your color, gentle, make you feel happy colors like this first one in orange and yellow, or pinks and yellows. And you might think that plant breeders bred these so they would have multiple colors, but no, that's something Lantana's always done. And a lot of plants do that, where the color of the flower changes over the age of the flower. And I tend to think, on this Lantana, the newest flowers are yellow and then they turn orange. Well, pollinators are probably a lot smarter than we realize. They don't want to waste time visiting a flower that's not going to have any nectar. So they learn, they'll go to these new flowers and avoid the older flowers that have already given out all their nectar. But the plant benefits because the older flowers remain there as eat at Sam's, fluorescent sign attracting the pollinators. Well, think about it. If you took all these older flowers off and left just the new ones that still have nectar, that's a whole lot less showy than that. But there's an old Victorian tropical subshrub called Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, because the flower goes through 3 color changes over the life of an individual flower. All right, where shall we go from here, Bernadette?
I want to go over to the petunias, and then I think we may be getting to where we need to wrap it up and take any other questions.
Okay, that's right.
But over here, it won't take but a few minutes. I just wanted them to see the petunias and see that we do have some that have survived all this tremendous amount of rain that we've had. Because when we've had rain, we've had several inches or considerable amount at one time lately. And that's why we saw the rapid decline of most of the other series here. I'm happy to say one of the ones that I was interested in early on, back in June, is still with us. I liked it because of the novelty of the flower, not because of anything else that I read about it. But anyway, so when you look over here, you'll see there were, I believe, 3 different series that still were surviving. This first one here is the Surfinia. Surfinia comes from Suntory, and Suntory is the one who sort of kicked off this trailing, wide-spreading petunias back in late 80s, early 90s. So you have out of their series this Surfinia Sumo Pink that's still with us. We've lost some of the plants, you can see behind it, but we still have some. Then you have here from Proven Winners, we've got Super Petunias Sharon. So I guess what you probably need to remember is think more of the series name than the exact one. So I'm not going to pull up the sign for each of these. But Sharon here has a very unique flower. It's got a nice bicolor, and it's a double. If I can, I think that's pretty. And then beside it, there again is another of the Surfinias. There again, it can take that heat that we've had, the dumping of water when we've had it. And my favorite though is way down here where past a lot of other stuff that's died. This is one of Ball's, it's by Ball Flora Plant. I will bring it up to you there. It's called Color Rush Merlot Star Improved. I liked the flower pattern. The plant itself is still going, so it may be something that you find you like as well, but this is one that I really liked. Look. Doug, I don't know if you have anything you want to add about these or through?
No, this upper end of the bed might be a little bit drier than lower down just because it runs downhill, so the fact that that one you showed most recently is still alive might be a really good testament that it's a tough one.
Right. In the other bed over here, we have a grass that I really have liked, the Prince Tut.
Yeah.
And I like that rigid, the upright. Yeah. It's looked nice all summer long.
It's actually papyrus, as in the plant that was the source for, papyrus paper that the Egyptians made. And King Tut is a dwarf selection because the full-size papyrus would be easily twice that height. Some cyperus, the genus is Cyperus, Cyperus, are winter hardy, including two of our favorite weeds, yellow nutsedge and purple nutsedge. But I've not found papyrus to be winter hardy, but it's easy to overwinter and plant out. It'll grow in standing water, but it doesn't have to be that wet. It just wants to avoid a dry site.
That particular shape you see in a lot of Egyptian paintings and on their hieroglyphs and things.
Now, I need to read up on the Cyperus. Cyperus are in the sedge family. What you learn in botany class about the sedge family is that sedges have edges. You can see how triangular this stem is. So there are your edges. But I need to read up on them because I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. Are these leaves or I don't know. It's really mysterious. But
You want me to hold something?
Well, I don't think I have my knife in my pocket because I got changed just before this program. And but it's this spongy interior of the stem. It's sort of almost like styrofoam. The green part of the stem is really tough. But this spongy inside is what must be used to make paper.
I think they pounded it, didn't they?
Well, and in water, I think. And then you take a screen and you lift some of the pulp out, hopefully spread evenly on the screen. At least that's how I've seen modern people make paper from plant fibers. And the Cyperus are fun because if you put this upside down in water, it should produce plantlets from it. So a fascinating plant.
I think before we go to any questions, I would like to give a big shout out to the volunteers that helped me maintain this all season long. Without all of their many, many hands, it wouldn't be done. The same with the volunteers behind the camera that are here today. It takes everybody doing a little part to keep us all moving. So thank you, as I said, to the ones that are the faithful weeders and mulchers, and just can't say enough good things about them.
And remember, a week from now, Tim Alderton will lead this program showing you how to propagate these plants so that you can save little starts of them over winter and have them for planting out next year.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Are there questions?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Doug and Bernadette. So everyone here can unmute their microphones now and ask questions if they would like, or they can still type them into the chat. I'm gonna go look through the back chats and see if there's any questions I can ask. But go ahead and speak now.
Whatever you touched.
All right, and let's see. Okay, someone wants to know. Oh, they answered that one. The Merlot star is ball seed. Mark, you were about to say something before we started all this. Did you want to hop in and say that now?
Oh, I was gonna say something
I thought you got it because you were going to come over and go,
Oh, yes.
Kelly Norris, who's doing that program that you mentioned on the
I
new
do like that. My
naturalism
cats.
design.
My
I
cats
just
would
was
love
gonna
that.
really
Okay,
just tell me how
Yes.
phenomenal
You don't
he
have any
is.
cats, you just have dogs.
I've just been impressed with every
That's
talk
smart.
he gives.
Do you,
Let's go ahead and get some
do you think
questions
that your
answered.
dogs would
All
want
right.
that?
So, Bernadette and Doug, do we trial any annuals for shade?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe you can see in the distance a wooden structure for shade annuals and a few perennials.
Some like New Guinea impatiens and things?
Begonias, New Guineas, we've had caladiums there as well as out in the sun. We have some primrose for perennials that are in there. I'm trying to think what else. And yes, as you said, the New Guineas, we've had those.
Well, and it all depends on what the grower or the supplier supplies. We don't generally plant things in there unless it's been formerly part of the color trials. Some of these growers are from parts of the country or world with very different climates. So they sometimes insist on planting some things we would never plant in the sun, out in the sun, and we have the results we expect. Like fried heucheras and stuff like that.
Well,
not all that tasty.
What we were talking about before, how with the All America selections, I received the same plant material here to trial that somebody in Idaho does. And this afternoon, prior to this, I was on a Zoom meeting with All America Selection judges, and there were some people that were talking about their high yesterday was like 72, their lows were in the 40s, so they're worried about stuff already being killed off. And I'm going, your high for the day, we would kill for our low for our night.
Yeah,
so
we
as you
didn't go
said,
down that low last night.
that's our winter temperatures. But anyway, that sort of plays on to what you were saying.
All right, thanks. We've had several questions throughout the afternoon about our watering and fertilizing scheme. If you want to give a second to talk about that.
We have pop-up irrigation, so it's in the rows here. It's on a programmer, and it can run it's about a half hour or an hour?
You're the one to answer that.
Well, I was going to say,
question.
I think it's a half hour, and we have it 3 times a week. But when we notice that it's a rainy period, we turn it off so that it doesn't just automatically come up. As for fertility, we once things are planted in the ground, I usually go over twice, sometimes 3 times with a liquid feed using a dosatron here in the trials. And for those of you that may not know what a dosatron is, it's a proportioner. It just sucks up a certain amount of fertilizer that's in suspension, and then I just water it out on each plant.
Okay. Someone here wants to know remedies for Gaillardias that flop over.
A much leaner diet. Yeah, that was the bane of my childhood. The Gaillardias always flopped over. Grow them in pure sand, send them to the beach for the summer and grow them on pure sand and they'll stand up, but maybe that's not a helpful answer. Grow the shorter varieties. I wouldn't, on a normal soil in this area, it's too rich for them. A tall one's gonna flop over. Grow a shorter selection.
All right. We have a question on the name of the pale yellow lantana that we walked by a little bit earlier.
I'll go look, but I believe it was luscious something. Let me go. If you want to field the next one.
Okay, I'll try to answer other questions.
I'm still scrolling backwards through the list of old questions. If you're on, you can go ahead and unmute and talk and ask me a question, and I'll pass it on to the team here.
Do the annual lantanas start blooming earlier than the perennials? perennial ones?
All right, the question is, do annual lantanas bloom earlier than the perennial ones do?
Well, they might only because your perennial ones are returning from complete dormancy. Whereas if you buy a container-grown annual lantana that's coming from a nursery where it's been grown in a heated greenhouse space, it's ahead of our normal season. But if they were both starting off returning from the ground, I don't think there would be a significant difference.
Okay, you were asking about the Lantana. The looser one is part of the Luscious series. It's called Luscious Citron. And then this more compact, well, actually they're about the same height, but the more mounded one is Sundance Yellow. And that Sundance is part of this new series to us, and it's from Cicada.
All right.
There is a lantana that's somewhat reliably winter hardy that's a pale yellow. Michael Durr at UGA named it Chapel Hill Yellow. I haven't found it to be reliably winter hardy every year, but it's somewhat hardy. But
The rabbit just ran out when I walked up.
yeah.
All right, let's see.
Did anyone want us to count the number of honeybees visiting this African blue basil?
So are these All-America Trial Gardens, are they all available to walk around in? I know ours is. Ours is open to the public. How about some of the others?
As far as I know, they are, but with that, there's some that are at businesses, some of the larger big box growers, and I'm not saying Home Depot, I'm talking about who grows for Home Depot. There are a couple places like that I'm sure they don't want just anybody onto their property, but if you called them, they would let you come and see the trials.
I know the Rutgers Arboretum in New Jersey, the color trials are open to the public, provided they're still doing them. And I think Longwood Gardens in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, they're probably still doing the color trials as well. And that garden is open, but there is a charge for admission charge.
We're free.
Yeah,
We'd love it if you join and be a member, but we're free.
Bernadette, could you say again the name of that double bicolor petunia in the Surfinia series?
The name of the double bicolor petunia in the Surfinia series.
Right there.
Oh, the Sharon? But that's
The last one that you held
The
up.
very last one you held up.
okay, it's a bicolor, just meaning the two different colors on it. And
Okay,
it's not Surfinia. It's Gold Rush Merlot improved by Ball Flora Plant, but it's the Ball Company.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to buy it from some of these companies like Ball Seed Company, but you can ask for it at a garden center.
But if she's looking for the double I talked about up here, and it is right here with Sharon. It's Supertunia Sharon. So
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
that was it.
You've answered their question.
Oh, okay.
Someone wants to know which of the heliotropes has a fantastic scent. The one you talked about doesn't, but you said one had a heavenly
Arborea,
scent.
isn't Arborea the tender one that's people often, is
Arborescens.
Arborescens.
Okay.
Heliotropium arborescens.
Mark is saying heliotrope arborescens. Okay.
Yeah.
all right,
Okay.
Thank you.
And you probably need to go to like Logi's nursery that sells the old-fashioned type, because there's modern selection's probably not the right word of arborescens that are not that fragrant. But Logi's nurseries, at least in the old days, used to sell the old-fashioned type, which is powerfully fragrant. Cherry pie was another common name for the plant.
All right. We got a lot of thank yous, so thank you guys. Let's see what else we got. I'm not seeing any other questions. If I missed your question, you can go ahead and type it into the chat again, or you can yell into your mic.
Or it's only 4:09. I thought.
Oh,
it would be like
Logi's
60.
nursery spelling. Okay, Mark got it. Logee.
Come out and join us. There's still life in the garden.
Yeah, we've
Of
got,
the annuals anyway, always life in the rest of the Arboretum.
we've got plenty of annuals. There's some of them are looking really good right now. So come on out and join us. We are open until 5 o'clock,
4:30.
4 o'clock,
Is it 4?
4:30.
4:30. We'll get it right. We'll figure it out. We're open till sometime in the afternoon, some days of the week, and some days of the weekend too.
Yeah.
Check our website.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
everybody, and can't wait to see you until next week. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.